Yes, it's time for the Studio Live Today podcast. On this week's episode, we're getting a little loopy. We're talking all things looping. If you've heard about this whole looping thing, but you've always wondered, what the heck is that and should I give it a go? Well, we've got someone who can let you know. That rhymes, and you know that rhymes. Please welcome back to Studio Live Today, the one, the only JP, John Paul Music UK. What's going on, mate?
Hey, good evening from the UK. Yeah, I'm doing really well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great, mates, and yeah, thank you first and foremost for the timing here. So we're recording this podcast live here on YouTube. So we've got some wonderful folks watching us record live, but of course you can check out the podcast on the audio version as well. But if you want to look at our pretty faces here, then you can jump on over to the video version as well. We're talking looping today, but we like to start. Well, I like to start each episode by just finding out a little bit about what's been going on in your world in the last week. So I didn't give you much of an introduction, except to say that you are my go-to looping guy. Whenever I get a question in my channel about looping, I just say go hassle JP. I don't know what's going on. So, what's been happening in the world of John Paul Music UK in the last weeks and months, mate?
Hello everyone. Thank you very much for having me, Pete.
Very welcome.
The looping thing is massive at the moment, and we're doing lots of different things. I'm currently working with someone who made a looping app, which is Loopy Pro. I'm working with Michael Tyson, a Tasty Pixel, and we're going through and filming the Loopy Pro video manual, which is starting off with 10 videos. We're probably going to be a lot more than that. All about Loopy Pro, the iOS app. And then at the same time, I'm actually writing at the moment my new looping course. So that's real fun. Oh, thank you very much. Look at that.
Yes.
So
those watching on the video see the link right there, but that'll be in the show notes for those listening on the audio version as well. So you're not missing out if you want to go and check that out.
So that link will take you to the course that I'm writing at the moment with a bit of a discount whilst I'm writing it, which is good. It's a really busy time, and I'm even gigging as well, which is good. And then I'm writing some music. So I've been looking at practicing what I preach, which sounds a bit strange. We're all busy making videos as YouTubers, but then it's like, well, actually, shall I make some music? So my theme for this year is an album of singles. So that's what I'm looking to do, but I'll get into that. I'll talk to you about that in a bit.
Yeah,
busy,
busy. Just a few things going on. Yeah. Oh, that's it's good. To stay busy, and it's I love that sentiment, and it's one that I'm trying to also live by, which is to practice what I preach, because it's very easy, as you know, when you're a creator. We'll talk creation and YouTube and all the other fun things behind the scenes a little later in the show. But yeah, it's very easy to get caught up in the business side and the algorithms and all of this stuff, whereas really it comes down to sharing with a community and creating music, and that's what we're all here for at the end of the day. So really cool to hear that's what's going on with you here on Studio Live Today. Yeah, we had a big week of live shows where I'm writing a song, so I'm trying to do the same thing, and we did some guitar tracking this week on GarageBand Weekly. We still had our weekly Your Music live show, which is 2 hours of independent music. We did get some JP music. I think we've had you on the show a couple of times in the past, but yeah, we need some more JP music on the show, and of course my happy hour. I'm doing British show, very relevant that I've got you as our guest this week. So I'm doing all British songs last week, and it was so popular that everyone said you got to play this, you got to play Who, you got to play Kinks, you got to play all these bands. Nice. I'm doing it again this week as well. So a little bit about what's going on around here as well. JP, now you need to talk to me like I'm about a 7-year-old, and I'm walking up to you and I see you with all this fancy gear and you're playing at a pub, and somehow your guitar is magically playing a different riff while you're playing another one, and then you're singing, and then you're harmonizing with yourself, and all this stuff's going on, and you're like, well, son, when you're like me, you can do looping as well. And I'm like, wow, what is looping? So to that 7-year-old or 43-year-old that doesn't know a thing about looping, how do you explain what the heck's going on there?
Looping is the process of recording yourself live in the moment and repeating that process. That's kind of the I don't know, if you opened a dictionary and looked at what is looping,
the Wikipedia
that's the Google first thing. Yeah, so looping is it is an art form, and it is one of those things where it's a great tool for creation, but also it's a fantastic showpiece as well. Normally, if people go, "What's looping?" people just go, "Katie Tunstall, Ed Sheeran, go and look at that."
Yep.
And it's just a process where you can do looping, but there's so many different genres now that use looping as well. And it's not just looping four chords forever. You can loop different things. You can loop different sounds, and it's just a great way of actually upping your game live, certainly when you do live looping, as opposed to like go to an open mic night and there's 10 15 people all with a guitar and a microphone, and you bring a looper. It just adds that extra element. I've even done like Battle of the Bands just with me and a looper, and I've beaten other bands. So it's like bands of like 5 people in it, and it's just great fun as well. But it's a great creation tool.
Very cool. And yeah, look, it's something that for me, because I play acoustic guitar, and a lot of people say to me, when are you going to start looping? You need to get a looping pedal. And look, I've tried it, and it is both a technical thing that you need to have the technical know-how, and it is an art form, because the timing, yeah, it really does. It really hits home with me the few times I've tried it, how precise you need to be able to time it, and basically how imprecise my guitar playing and singing was, because there ain't no speeding up or slowing down if you can't keep things in time when you're looping. Is that a fair statement, or am I like overdoing that? Is it actually easier than perhaps I've thought going in?
I think this is actually part and parcel of my new course, which is all about beginning the shallow end of the swimming pool, as it were, for looping. And it is about timing. And it is, the funny thing is, if you can strum a guitar, or if you can play a piano, or if you can play a saxophone or whatever, or you can like tap on the table, you can technically loop, because you know rhythm, and it is about rhythm. But it's also, I think drummers are probably the best ones for this, because they have to learn how to disjoint their hands with their feet. And I think one of these things where if you strum at the same time, the simplest thing to do is just tap your foot on the floor, and whilst you're doing that, you go loop 2 3 4, stop looping 2 3 4, and it's about that. So, and I think a lot of people go into pedal loopers first, and then they look at the Ed Sheeran and the loopers, the Boss loopers, all these other pedal ones. And there's other ones out there. There's app loopers. There's looping with a computer with things like Ableton. There's so many different ways you can do it, and you can trigger it in so many different ways as well, with like a keyboard or an iPad, or So it's come a long way, and there's like multi-phrase loopers, which you got one looper which can loop things, and you can overdub things, and just keeps going and going and going. But then you can also have a 2-phrase looper, and then you've got things like the Boss IC600, which is a 6-phrase looper, and that's crazy. And then you've got to remember it all. It's all in here, like the bass, the drums, the ooh, and all these other noises you've got to put in. So yeah, you end up becoming a bit of a band in your head, and you've got to get it. It's like getting it out on paper or getting it down.
Very cool.
But going back to the shallow end of the swimming pool. Yes, you can learn looping if you know how to play an instrument. You've picked up rhythm even subconsciously at some point, so you can obviously translate that into pressing a button whilst you do the downstrum of something, and then you're looping.
Yeah, and I guess like anything, and like we say around here all the time, practice makes progress, and you do need to practice. Like any skill, it's a muscle, it's a memory, it's a learning, and I'm sure looping falls into that category as well. And look, if people want to get a head start and they want to do it for free, JohnPaul Music on YouTube, you've got a heap of demos and tutorials and looping information over there. And then when you're ready to take it to the next level, we've got a link there. You can just go to the website or go to the special link we got here if you're listening to this, depending when you're listening or watching this show, but I reckon if you go over to the website JohnPaul Music, just as it sounds, .co.uk, there'll be links to all the stuff you can do over there. By the way, if you've got questions, if you're here live, if you've got questions, we will do a question time. I've already grabbed one there from you, Many Vibes. So please throw your questions. Just pop a Q in front of them if you're here in the live YouTube chat, and I'll tag those. And when we get to question time, we'll throw all your tough looping questions at JP so he can answer all of those. Now, you mentioned there briefly hardware and software looping. So I guess there's kind of 2 ways to go. You can have the old school loop pedal where you just, like you say, you tap your foot as you strum, and then you record a segment, and then that loops back and plays while you play something else or record something else. There's also software looping. What do you suggest people start out with, and what are kind of the pros and cons, I guess, of using hardware versus software when it comes to looping?
So the the simplest way to do it is if you've got a phone, you can probably get a looper on the phone. If you've got, whether it's Android, whether it's iOS, I'm cut me open. There's an Apple logo inside, so that's just what happens. But I know obviously there's Android ones there as well. There's ones for PC. There's ones for Mac. There's all this different ones. I think it's probably cheaper to get an app than it is to go and spend £200-300 on a pedal. However, the pedal is a piece of hardware that's dedicated to do one thing and one thing only. Some of them have effects and everything, but it's dedicated and it's a nice big hardware pedal. I know loads of guitarists and loads of loopers who actually use software and they don't use a pedal, which freaks the masses out of me because I'm like, how do you start? How do you press the button and do that at the same time? And then you can get pedals like there's these. Even what they call air turn pedals, like where basically you're meant to use them to turn the page on an iPad. You can actually reprogram one of them to be the pedal for your Bluetooth. Boss have just brought out a brand new pedal which is called the FS1WL, the wireless FS as it were, and it's a Bluetooth pedal. So you can use it for things like that as well. So to answer your question, Pete, I going for an app first gives you a little bit of taste, and a lot of people get put off with the hardware loopers because they go, "Oh, I can't quite get it." Maybe you've got the wrong looper. Maybe it's not the right one for you. There's also tabletop ones for if you're DJing and you're beatboxing, you can actually do it with your fingers, like the Boss RC505 Mark II, which is the most popular one. And then there's ones where you can actually though plug into your computer, and if you've got like a keyboard with some drum buttons, you could reprogram those drum buttons to be looping buttons. So it's totally up to you. Use what you've got before running out to the music store and buying a load of gear. That's a big thing I'm always about, and it's But like things like Loopy Pro, I'm a big advocate of that. Of course I am, because I'm doing this series with it. But I genuinely think that's the best iOS looping app, definitely. The way you can that can be your digital audio workstation. That's how good it is. So things like that are really, really good. If you don't want to fork out for that amount of money, the previous version, Loopy HD, you've got Quantaloop Pro, L7 Looper, and they're all a couple of quid. Like literally, like a couple of quid, and you can get looping straight away.
Yeah, no, that's it's amazing. I have the same. I think the reason we get on pretty well is that we have very similar attitudes when it comes to things, which is like just get started, start creating right now with whatever you've got, and then you can build it up over time. And like neither you or I or anyone started with a room full of kit. Like you have to build this up over time, and you're not going to be good if you go out and buy them. I've always said I don't think people should learn on like a Gibson or a Fender guitar, because if you learn on that, you kind of haven't earned your stripes and made your way up, and you won't know the difference. You won't feel that like, oh, I bought my first $100 guitar and now I bought a $500 guitar and now playing a $1,000 guitar. You really tell the difference. And I think it's the same with anything, and probably the same with looping.
I'll tell you now, since where are we? Since I bought my first guitar, my very first guitar, I'm piano originally, but when I bought my first guitar, the guitars I use right now, I think you can pick up for about 240 quid. And they're the guitars I use professionally right now, the Yamaha APX 600. And they're great. That I use them for both gigging and studio stuff. And there we go. Yep. I know you can get $1,000 and £1,000 guitars, and that scares the living crap out of me, to be quite honest. So
likewise. And I think it's the same thing. Like I got this advice really early on from, I can't even remember who now, so I can't credit them, but they said, look, don't save up and buy, like same with microphones or guitars or keyboards or whatever, because if you save up and you get that one thing, you are then limited to that one thing. So if you're starting out and you go buy a Shure SM7B for $400, well then you've got one nice broadcast dynamic microphone, but you don't have a condenser, and you don't have a ribbon, and you don't have a small diaphragm, and you're better off to get things that can give you a bunch of different sounds and use them like tools and instruments and build that up over time.
Yeah, don't go and get an SM7B. I'm big about this. Get the Aston Stealth mic. It's got 4 mics inside it. It's beautiful. Now it is about 200 odd quid, but it's got 4 different circuitries in it. So it's got a V1, a V2, a G, and a D, and the D is ribbon. So it's really nice. It's got a cloud lifter built in. It's got a pop shield. And this is about 200-ish quid. This one is about 80 quid. And it's absolutely fantastic, and I've absolutely love it, so much so that me and Patrick have had a good conversation about this from the GarageBand Guide, and it's a beautiful microphone. Again, Aston, I'm a big Aston fan, so there we go.
There you go. There's a plug there. I'm sure that the check from Aston's in the mail. That's what I hear. A lot of folks talking about Loopy Pro. Thomas Christ here at our live stream, one of our wonderful moderators, said, "I just want Loopy Pro for the immediacy of creativity." Yeah, definitely something that you can do. Immediacy. I think you're going to throw that in a future episode of your series, mate. It's Loopy Pro, the immediacy of creativity. Sounds great.
Yeah, Thomas, that's great. I like that. Nice.
Yep, Loopy Pro. So the Semtex Cal says Loopy Pro being so completely customizable kicks the ass out of any hardware scene. Demos of it from very simple to a complex live DAW. Yeah, and folks like Jade Starr, a member of our community here, has indeed created whole songs on Loopy. So it's not just about, I'm just looping I'm whacking my guitar and then I'm playing a guitar over it, then I'm doing some oohs and ahs. Yeah, sure, you can do that, but you can do so much more with it as well. And in fact, why don't we go, that's a good segue, because that's actually the next topic that we've got on our list here, which is Loopy Pro, because you are partway through, I think it's a 10-part series you're working on at the moment about the 10-part, Loopy Pro video manual. Tell us a little bit about that and how that came about.
So when Loopy Pro finally came out, and I do say finally, and I'm sure Michael won't mind me saying that, I was a big fan of Loopy HD. And before that, it was just called Loopy. Then he did the HD version for the iPad. I did a load of videos on that, and it got quite popular. And then Michael does have a beta team as well. So speaking to him on the beta team about things like that. And it was meant to be called Loopy the Masterpiece Edition originally, about 8 years ago. And then Michael obviously came back with, no, it's going to be Loopy Pro. The audio engine, Michael Tyson, I have to give a massive shout out to for iOS in general. He created Loopy HD, created Audio Bus, and then created Loopy Pro. The amount of musicians who owe him something because of just Audio Bus on its own before AUV3 plugins even came in is massive. But anyway, Loopy Pro. The thing with Loopy Pro is it was the first one where you go, hey, you can change this to whatever you want. With things like Quantaloop, Quantaloop Pro is a great app, but it's also probably just mimicking like an RC pedal, whereas this one is like the load of donuts, but you can turn it around and go, do you know what, I'm going to build this with a load of faders in and a load of buttons and a load of this, that and the other, and color code it and everything else, and then you can record in there, and then it can be a sequencer, and then you can actually have it as a digital audio workstation. So you can bring all this stuff, and it's truly powerful. And I think there's going to be someone who brings a single out somewhere or an album out somewhere, and they're going to use this if they haven't already, because it is just, you just need that and an audio interface, and you are running. It is that powerful.
It's brilliant stuff, and I've seen people creating and I guess for those of us that are used to a linear workflow, I guess, so the classic sort of tape record, because a lot of us started with tape recording and like 4-track recorders, depending how old you are, or digital recorders, hardware-based recorders, and that was always about linear recording and the concept of non-linear recording. I see people using things like Ableton Live, and it blows me away, because the way that you can create with loops and with bringing different things and sequencing, and look, sequencing's been around since the 80s or the 70s probably, but it is very different. It's very easy to have that workflow now, and I think something that we say a lot around here is that these days digital audio, like Loopy Pro uses 24-bit 44.1 kilohertz audio like any other iOS app, and they use the same audio quality as a Mac or a PC. So I think the old days of saying, oh well, if you're not using Pro Tools, you're not making a professional record, it really doesn't matter anymore. I know that annoys some people when you say that, because you know what, if I had a $25,000 Pro Tools HD studio rig set up, I'd probably feel I've invested a bit of money, and I'd want to defend that as being the only way to go. But really, because I mean, you use I'm assuming you use GarageBand and Logic as well, and as well as some other tools, and it's amazing what you can do, isn't it, on very little hardware.
I'm very, very lucky because of what I do, and because of the education I've had with all this equipment. And I haven't, again, just like Peter, I didn't start with all this equipment. I moved over, my first Apple product was a Mac, and that was basically in 2000. So even before an iPod or a phone or anything like that, because when I went to uni, it was a degree in digital music, and it was like I walked in with a computer that had Windows 98 on it, and the entire suite of people were like, Mac, and I was like the big Tower Macs, the big or a really chunky laptop. So it was like, right, okay, so I got myself one of those Tower Macs, the G3, and that's
Oh,
it. I never looked
yes.
back, and I went on, and I was a Pro Tools man. I was like running on Pro Tools. We were learning how to mix analog and digital, which was great for me.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, this other thing came out, which was basically Logic Express, and I was like,
Yeah.
and then GarageBand, and then Logic Pro, and everything else. And it was more. Someone said this to me that. Pro Tools was the mixer's like mixer and producer choice.
Yeah.
Logic Pro was the musician's choice. So I kind of moved over to Logic Pro from that
Yeah.
point, and I was like, because it was just felt more creative. Having said all of that, I've done things where I've actually launched stuff on a looper, on a hardware looper and a software looper. My last song that I brought out, I brought one out a couple of weeks ago, which is a acoustic version of one of my old songs, and it was actually for our hand fasting ceremony. But the song before that was a song called "Trying to Say Hello," and that came from a loop, and so much so that there's a couple of loops actually from the RC600. I just took the waveform and put it into GarageBand to begin with, and ironically looped it. So I just basically carried it over and just carried on looping it, and until I just got like kept it going, kept it looping, and go, and it just started to come up with the lyrics. Because it's a looping machine, you just keep it running until you go, oh no, okay, I could add this bit in, and I could add that bit in, and it's just having it going round. And that's why on all digital audio workstations you have this thing with the two little arrows to say
Yeah.
loop that round, so you can just get, re-record your verse or re-record your chorus. And with a looper, you've got that naturally. So
Yeah.
Trying to Say Hello came out of looping. Boss Castle, another song, came out of looping. All I Now Have came out of looping. So I use looping as a production tool, almost as a creation tool. It's kind of my way of writing things down, but also keep it going whilst I'm going, does that harmony work with that? And you
Yeah.
go da da da, you go da da da. It's like, okay, or whichever harmony it is. Sorry, that was an octave. But you get the idea. Like it's a really great creation tool. Whilst like having to go stop, rewind, play again. Oh, go back to the beginning, play again. It's just going round and round and round, and you can just add things like going. Am I adding a little bit too much spice into this mix? Or can I take it away again? So yeah, I'm really passionate about looping, as you can tell, but. Because I don't just see it as the Ed Sheeran thing. I do see it as a real good practice piece. Like if you want to practice like a solo and it's haven't quite got it, you could slow the loop down and play it in bits and then start speeding up again. So you're creating your own backing track in that respect to help you with your own twiddling, as it were.
And that's the thing. It's one of those things that you don't even realize you're using it, but you probably are. So for me, I'm working on a punk song at the moment, and to start this punk song, to get into the feel, I threw one of the GarageBand auto drummers on, playing a punkish kind of beat. So instead of playing to a metronome, I was playing to a drum loop. Yeah, I think it was Anders. Yeah, it's always got to be Anders, doesn't it? Yeah, I think poor Kyle.
Poor Kyle.
Oh man,
Never gets looking. Not anymore.
I've got to make for those that don't use GarageBand, Kyle's the default drummer. That every time you put your drummer on, it puts Kyle in there, and then the meme is that no one leaves Kyle in. Kyle's in there, and Kyle is always replaced. So yeah, I've always wanted to do like a T-shirt that's a picture of the outline of Kyle and just like a teardrop falling down, and just poor Kyle, or
that's a great idea.
Pour one out for Kyle or something like that.
That's a great idea.
Very cool. No, that's right. We go off on tangents here. Speaking of tangents, if folks do want to check out your music, again, over at JohnPaul Music UK on YouTube. I'm just bringing it up here for folks watching the video version. You've got your music videos down here. You've got your albums and your singles. So if you want to sort of see the proof of the pudding, you can come in here and you can see all of the things that JP does around recording and creating and releasing music, similar to what we do around here on this channel, but also the music. So you can actually see the finished products of some of the fruit of your labours, so to speak, there. So that's all again at JohnPaul Music UK on YouTube. So go over and subscribe and do it right now. We had some questions here in the chat. Folks wanted some more details, but we'll get to the proper question time in a sec. But they were just asking about those microphones. So I've jumped over here to Sweetwater now. Which was the model? Because people were like, "Oh, which one was it that he was talking about?"
Everyone looks at the Aston Origin or the Aston Spirit. The one that I'm talking about is the one that's in the black one on the second row, right in the middle, 399. There's that 399 Australian. Yeah, the Stealth. So this has 4 different voices inside it, or 4 different circuitries. I've got it on V1 at the moment. I'm not going to change it now because it makes a horrible popping noise. But V1 is for deeper voices. V2 is for lighter voices. G is for guitar, and D is for dark, which means it's a ribbon. It's got a built-in pop shield, so you don't need, and it's also got a built-in cloud lifter, so you don't need to buy a cloud lifter. Here's the kicker, though. I'm currently using it at 48 volts phantom power, and you don't have to use it at 48 volts phantom power. So I could actually take this on stage with me, or I could point it at an amp, take 48 volts off, and it can put a screaming guitar in it, and it's fine. So it's really, really clever. And then the other one is the Aston Element, which is the People's microphone, the People's Choice microphone. I've done videos on both of them. Selfish plug. But the Aston Element, you can get it for around about 80 pounds in the UK, about 140, 159. There you go.
159 US.
It's a really weird looking microphone, but you know what? The sound out of it is amazing. It's a Iridian capsule. I don't know what Iridian is.
I've never heard of a Iridian capsule.
And then the pop shield and the stand come with it, and the pop shield is magnetic. It's really cool.
Oh, there you go.
It's lovely. Cool. And then Patrick from GarageBand Guides picked one up as well. And I think he got it. I think he got it for about 80 pounds in the UK. Really, really good microphone. Really crisp. So,
very cool. Yeah. There you go. There's some additional. I know folks were asking, and if you want to see what they look like, you can come over to the video version. But if you're just listening, if you just search Aston at your favorite place, or I'm sure JP's got gear guides, and we got gear guides around here, so you can use our affiliate links if you so desire. Once you're a content creator, always a content creator. You always got to add that a bit of shameless self promotion in there as well.
Absolutely, fingers in all pies.
That's right. Speaking of fingers and pies, creating music and releasing music, because full disclosure, you do video sponsored by DistroKid, as I do here as well. So releasing albums and singles is very easy with DistroKid. Links in the description. But we were talking about at the start of this show about doing an album of singles, and it's really interesting because I've asked this to a few folks lately. Albums versus singles, is the whole idea of a concept album, is that dead? Is it dying? Is it on the operating table? Does it have any life left? Or are we in a single and playlist culture now? What say you, JP?
I'm going to be really controversial because every year I do at the beginning of January we always do New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions as a musician, and then I caught a video on YouTube. I can't remember his name now, but I'll find it for you. And it's all about themes. So instead of having a New Year's resolution, you have a theme for either 3 months or a year. So now I'm kind of like, this is the theme. This could be the year of something. So that for me, instead of the year of something, the album of something. So now this is the album of singles. So this album is going to be the idea. I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself by saying this, but because I haven't said it publicly yet, but the idea was to basically release a single a month, every month, and then I'll have 12 singles, and I'll turn that into an album. They don't have to be coherent because they're singles; they're independent of each other. However, to your question, Pete, a concept album, absolutely not dead. Because it tells a story, and I am from the ilk of I like that. There's the whole listen on Spotify on a playlist. That's fine. I don't really listen on playlists. I want to hear the whole album. I want to hear what the artist has done throughout that whole journey, and just to actually put salt into people's wounds about singles. Even though I'm doing an album of singles, Miley Cyrus brought out Flowers as a single, but if you actually go to it, it's actually the first play on the album, and it just says track 2, track 3, track 4, track 5, and that's not out yet. So you're actually listening to her album without realizing that you're listening to an album. So you're not listening to a single, you're listening to the first track of the album, and that's a really clever way of promoting the rest of your stuff. So from a promotional point of view, no, they're not dead. They're not on a dead table at all. I fully believe that they are there to stay, because you're going to get people who go, I like that, what's next? And then they go off to another person, or they go, oh my God, I love this artist. I want to hear everything they have now. And I think They don't always have to be concept or story behind the whole album, or but the having that period in time when you've recorded something, there's going to be a consistency there.
Yeah.
You go right back to like Queen, and you go right back to like Phil Collins, and when bringing stuff out, and I'm from that era, but that kind of idea of bringing out a whole album, going off into a farm for 3 months and
Yeah,
doing nothing
yeah.
but writing. I'd love to do that now. But go into a forest somewhere in Canada. But
Yeah.
yeah, that having that idea of having an album like that's still really enticing to me, and I really hope it doesn't die. I hope I'm not wrong in this, because I love listening
Yeah.
to a whole album from beginning to end.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and I think it is probably like I say more of a dependent thing. Some people love it, and some people never. Like I know, so my daughters are 11 and 13, and I can safely hand on heart say that neither has listened to an entire album by an artist end to end, which I find a
It's
little bit
sad.
sad. And I
Yeah.
think it might be a bit of a generation thing, and
Maybe
they'll
it
say,
is.
"What it?"
I'm in my 40s now, so maybe it is a
Uh,
generation thing. But yeah,
likewise.
I think I'll have to ask the kids and find out what
Yeah.
they think. Yeah,
It's worse than that though, mate. They don't even listen to a whole song. They listen to 30 seconds, and then they'll be just like, "Yeah, I got the hit. I got the
my lot
gist."
do. My lot do. I mean,
Yeah.
the youngest is heavily into Jimmy and the Beatles, so I'm
There
really
you
happy
go.
about that. So
So
there we go.
I'm working hard. I'm trying to influence really hard towards what I like, and I get surprised. The little one's into ska, really likes Real Big Fish. So I'm just like,
Really?
okay, yeah, there you go. Keep going with that. Very cool stuff. Again, we'll do some questions. We've got one more topic here, and then we're going to ask some questions. So if you do have a question and you're here live, go ahead and put a Q in front of your comment, and we'll ask those to JP in just a jiffy. But consistency, mate. You have been consistent. I checked out. The last time you were on this channel was in January 2020, and as we
Yeah.
know, nothing weird happened in the 3 years
No.
between then and now. It's all
No.
been smooth sailing. But you were consistently recording videos and music
Yeah.
and sharing your knowledge back then. And you have been, I've been very impressed with the consistency that you've had over that time, which is not
Thank you.
easy. And I
No.
guess many folks would be sitting back asking, like, because some things go great, as you know, with content creation, some things go amazingly well, some things fall flat on their face. You can
Yes.
spend a lot of time and energy doing something and it gets no exposure, and then you can throw something out that you don't even think about, and everyone
Absolutely.
jumps on it, which is frustrating at times. Do you have any tips for folks that are maybe sitting back going, I'd love to do what you do, I'd love to share my music, share my
Sure.
knowledge, maybe teach
Yeah.
people? How do you remain consistent doing that?
So let's go right back to the beginning, not the beginning of my. If you look at my YouTube channel, I had the YouTube channel since 2009, and
Yeah.
I did what most musicians did: to go, I'm going to promote myself on YouTube and be a star. And I did nothing with it. I put about 6 videos on there in like 8 years. And then 2019, I just started getting a lot of questions because I've been doing live streaming on things like Facebook, and it was like, oh, how'd you plug that into this, and how'd you do this? So I actually started screenshotting things and going like filming myself going, right, do da, and I sent it to someone. I was like, I'm just gonna have a go at this and put this on YouTube. And I said to my wife, I'm gonna do a video a week, and that's it. I'm just gonna do a video a week. That's it, and let's just see how it goes. And then very very luckily, I got approached by DistroKid, and we also I think it was the January of 2020, we did a series which was from idea to release, which is available on the channel. And it was the idea was let's make a song from idea to release, but we're not using a computer, we're only using an iPad. And that was the unique selling point of it. And for consistency, it was more about like as you can probably tell, I could talk for Britain, and that's great. But also at the same time, I'm really scatty. So for me to pin my own brain down onto a table, I actually use an app. I use an app called Trello, so Trello, and it's a ideas app, and you just put down a load of ideas. So I just went, right, brain, I've had some caffeine, let's just go and put a load of ideas down. And the fear is, oh my God, I'm going to run out of ideas. But then something happens, and then it just keeps going. This is an amazing app. You can get it. I have it on my phone, and it's on the first page. That's how important it is. Right next door to the YouTube Studio app. And it's just basically put stuff down. You might want to put stuff inside that app. I just put ideas down and go that. And it was like, cool. How, and I kind of quickly realized the looping thing was quite unique. And then, as you quite rightly said, nothing happened in 2020. And in March of 2020, we moved house, and then the week later, we couldn't leave the house. And loads of my friends were like, "Oh my god, I haven't got gigs." There's a friend of mine who literally gigs full time. That's his job, and he's like, "I can't pay my mortgage. What do I do?" And I'd been live streaming the year before on Facebook, and I was like, "This is how you plug this in, so you can plug your microphone into your phone. You need this adapter, the camera adapter. You need this and this, that, and the other, blah blah blah." And that one video exploded, and that video now is on something like 100. I don't even know if it's hit to over 200,000 now. So it's on 190,000 views. But it literally spiked exactly the same week in the UK. We all went into lockdown, and that one video paid for our wedding.
Yeah.
Like, so for me, that was like, oh my God, YouTube's the future for me. I was like, right, okay, I need to do this. Then a friend of mine actually kind of egged me on. So another YouTube friend of mine who actually lives very local is Unders. He goes by the name of Unders. He's a drum and bass producer. That's Scott, and he was like, just do it, just keep going, just do it. And then he showed me how to actually build my own first course. So I kept doing it, kept consistent, and then my wife went, you still do a day job? Do you realize you've been working 6 days a week for 3 years? And I went, what do you mean? She said, well, you work 5 days a week, and we have Sundays off together, and your other day off, when like she's at work and I have a day off randomly during the week, that was my YouTube day. And that was like YouTube day, and I was like, right, I need to film something, and then it was like, I need to start editing, and then I got shown how to do an editing on an iPad. And it was actually through Henny the Business who I found this, and he's an amazing producer. And he actually uses iOS Loopy Pro, and he uses Luma Fusion for editing. So I was like, okay, I'll try it and see what it's like. And I put all my stuff onto the iPad with the little adapter from the camera, and I was filming from the iPhone. I didn't have anything else other than an iPhone. This is a digital SLR. I didn't have this when I started. I was filming from the iPhone 10, iPhone X. And I just started filming with Filmic Pro, I think it's called, and then airdropping it to the iPad, making a folder for that, and then using LumaFusion. And I'm sitting there on the train. I'm sitting there on my lunch break in my work, just editing away with headphones on, and that's how I kept consistent. It was actually carving little hours out of the day. Like, it's a 40-minute train ride either side. There's like over an hour and a half. There's an hour break, and as long as I haven't to go out and get my lunch, there's over 2 hours a day. I could actually sit there and go, oh, I'll just watch Netflix on my lunch break. Actually, no, I'll edit. And then just this is the Think Media thing of punching fear in the face. They frame it so well. It is punch fear in the face and just get it done. Like, don't be perfect with it, just get it done. And as long as you've got good content to give people want to listen. And it's like, my content was like, here's how you plug that into that. Here's how you do this. So for me, it was about answering specific questions. And then we kind of dropped into looping. The RC600 came out, and very, 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 very luckily, Boss contacted me and said, do you want to do it? And I went, yeah. So they sent me one. They sent me an RC600, and then they were like, let's make a load of videos about it. And of course, I just went nuts. So I locked myself in this room. I actually took a week's holiday from work, but didn't go anywhere. Stayed here and locked myself in the room and just read all the guides and tested it all and played with it and everything else. And then brought out a load of videos. And now I have a full course on that as well. So yeah, it's kind of like born out of answering questions, really, and then just keep answering questions. Now with the YouTube Shorts thing, you could actually do it in under 60 seconds. You can go one thing, plug that into there, you're done. And now they're letting people make money off the YouTube Shorts as well as the big long videos. And now we do a podcast, and now we do live streaming, and the live streaming has gone really, really well, because it's like, I'll do a Tuesday Tunes with JP, and that's like literally I'll rig up that as if I'm in a gig, and we'll have a camera pointing I'm pointing over there, by the way, because it's all over here. At the looper and me, and I was like, right, here's this song. Now I've played the song, great, like it, cool, let's break it down, here's how I looped it. And then it's like, I'm not telling you to do it, I'm just saying that's how I do it. Take from it what you will. And we've built up a nice little community, and I'm really, really proud of it, to be honest.
Yeah,
so there we go.
No, it's a fairly similar story. Like again, I was a little bit earlier, because I was sort of just pre-pandemic, but I went through a very similar phase where I was just trying to learn to do things, and then the real open, because when I started out, I was cutting in Premiere Pro, because that's what all the other people were doing, and I was shooting on a DSLR.
I've got Final Cut
other people are doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the amount of effort you go to, like shooting on a DSLR and then having to do color correction and lighting and stuff. And then I realized people don't actually care about that. They just want decent quality. It doesn't have to be exceptional quality, but they want the information and they want it delivered. And it actually leads us to our next topic because they want it delivered in the most concise and consumable format, which, as you mentioned, they're shorts. I've gone through a time with shorts where I really disliked them. I thought they were the worst thing. Vertical video really annoys me. I've kind of made my peace with it because I've started using them. Because when I want to solve a problem, if I can watch a 60-second video that says do this, then do this, then do this, then do this, as opposed to, hi, welcome to my amazing channel, 10-second intro sting. In this video, we're going to show you how to do this. And once we show you how to do this, you're going to be so happy because you'll now know how to do this. And I'm just like, just tell me how to do it. So I've kind of made my peace with shorts from that point of view. What have you found?
He wonders why his daughters can't listen to a whole album.
I know, right? I know. I'm leading by bad example.
Yeah, no, attention span's gone through the floor. But you know what? Actually, for people who create content, who answer questions, like I answer questions for the RC600, that was really, really good for me because it was actually like, okay, can I set this up and answer the question in under 59 seconds. I always make sure it's 59, not 60, because it could bleed over.
Sometimes it goes and it's like 1.1 second over and it doesn't count as a short. No, it's right.
So,
59 seconds, good tip.
And the people there's some people who are massive fans of the channel, and what's really, really funny is they're like, have you sped that up a little bit because your voice sounds a bit weird? And I'm like, yes.
Speed control 1.2.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm talking like this, blah, 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 and then they're like, "Can you slow down?" I'm like, "No, because it's a short, and I've got lots to say."
Just watch it again and again.
What's really good though is like I'll now go through like the comment section, obviously through things like the YouTube Studio, and you see the comments on the videos. It's like that's cool, but how do you do that? And I'm like, that goes in Trello. So I've got a shorts list for Trello of like, how do you do this? And I'm like, can I put that into a short? If I can, I'll do it. And a short's incredibly easy to film. Right, literally all my YouTube shorts are filmed on my phone. And it's from the same people who make the Filmic Pro app. They make an app called Double Take. And literally it uses the front facing and the rear facing camera and films both at the same time. So I can go, let me show you. Like that, and then you've got the footage from both, and you just chop it up. It's dead easy. So double takes really, really easy. And then that way, I literally, that's it. So basically, you can film the front-facing camera and the back, and then all you got to do is put a bit of movement at the end, and go. And you'll notice with all my shorts, they're like, shoom, hi, shoom, and it moves around, and then I just cut it at that point. So I just do it in tiny, tiny, tiny bits. And yeah, for answering YouTube comments, I can go, yes, you can do that, or I can go, let me show you in a 59-second short. So there we go.
Brilliant. Well, there's a couple of really good tips there. Another good app there, Double Take by Filmic Pro, and I've used Filmic Pro for shooting video. It's very good because you get good control over your audio and your video and the settings. Like the camera app in iPhone doesn't really let you control much, but Filmic Pro, very good for that. So Double Take, something I wasn't aware of. So I'll have to take a look at that. Well, we're going to put you to the test because we've got about 7 minutes left in this podcast, mate. And we've got 3 questions here. So you're going to have to use your shorts skills without editing to answer some of these questions and see how succinct we can be, because then we do need to wrap things up and say our farewells. But many vibes. Best foot pedal to use with Loopy Pro? That's a good question. If you're using software, have you got any recommendations around pedals to actually use with that?
I can answer that question with a question, which is how many buttons do you want at your feet? I would say the Boss FS1WL. It's a 3-button looper, which is a Bluetooth Bluetooth pedal, but at the same time, it's also got expandability, so you can still plug in things like the FS6 and the an expression pedal as well, so you can add more to it. Alternatively, if you've got things like a WIDI Master or a WIDI Jack, which is a little Bluetooth dongle, the Morningstar MC8 is an amazing MIDI pedal. It doesn't have Bluetooth on it, but you can then add Bluetooth to it, or you can just wire it in with the right connectors. But I would use something like that. But I'm actually using the FS1WL with Loopy Pro myself.
Very cool. Yeah, but there, for those watching the video, you can see a little picture of it there. It's a nice looking little unit there in Boss Boss are they own the looping space. Is that fair to say with the hardware side of
With the
things?
hardware side, there's a couple of ones that are out there. I think the most competitive one is Headrush Looper Board, and it's a big. I've got it. It's a big looper with a 7-inch touchscreen. It's basically a computer in a metal shell. But the downside of that one, as I say, it's massive and it's huge. But it's a 4-track looper. But yeah, Boss in the sense of range of what loopers you can get. It's Boss all the way. Absolutely, they've cornered that.
Lovely. Mars Capone, one of our viewers and one of my patrons here. Hello, Mars. Says, hi, gents. What are some pointers for looping live as opposed to home jamming on Loopy Pro? So when you're ready to step it up from your studio to an actual live situation, what are some pointers there?
I'm going to take the answer that a lot of people actually say, including things like Emily McVicker. If you haven't seen her, she's another YouTuber who's also on Twitch, and it literally is, don't take too long to make your loops. And she did the pointy thing at me as well. Don't take too long to make your loops. If you're in a pub and you're taking 4 minutes before you've even start the first verse, I've done that. I've been there. Every loop artist has, and you go through that journey of like, I'm just gonna go, and then you start putting the bass in, then you start putting the keyboards in, and then from the back you get someone going, "Well, you just sing something, mate." It's heartbreaking. So what I would say is, think about the structure of your loop. So put the and then start playing and play the first verse, and then after that add the bass line in, and then add a bit in, sing, add a bit in, sing, and just keep doing that, because instead of adding it all in at the beginning, you've lost everyone already. So for live looping, keep it entertaining.
That's a brilliant tip, because, I must admit, I saw an amazing bloke. He was maybe 18, had like the blonde hair and the cool necklace, and like he just looked so cool. He was just epitomized cool, and it was setting up, and I saw all the gear he had, and I'm like, this is going to be brilliant. Like, this guy looks talented. And I'm sitting there sipping, and I was like 3/4 way through my pint, and he was still faffing about and hadn't actually played anything yet. And then when he started playing, it was amazing, but you could see people, it was like, oh, what's this bloke going to do? And then everyone just tuned out because he was taking too long to set up, and by the time he got going, exactly as you say, he lost the crowd. So very good point.
if you can't set up for an open mic night, then you can't set up. I mean, I'm saying this right now, but I've just done an interview with a duo called the Distance. Sorry, my brain's gone dead. And they have an immense setup, but they are fantastic at looping. And they're a duo. So imagine all the looping equipment and all the keyboard equipment, and times it by 2. So they have a lot of equipment, but they are very good at it.
Yeah. Practice makes progress, folks. Final question, because we're in 3 minutes to go here. Is there a way to hook into the iPad internal mic without an audio interface? So, what's the minimum setup, I guess, if you want to do some looping? Can it be done without an audio interface?
Absolutely. Go and get the £19 headphones from Apple, or go and get headphones that have got a normal headphone jack, and then all you need to do is get the USB or the Lightning to 3.5 millimeter jack headphones. All you need is headphones.
Yep.
And if you get headphones with a little microphone here, great. But if not, you can use the microphone of that iPad, and then you can just use normal headphones. You just need that headphone adapter so you don't get feedback.
Yep. Spot on. Yeah, and that's the biggest tip with everything. Like, people that are recording, they don't realize that, hey, if you've just got plugging in headphones, that's the first way to do it. And people go, oh, but I keep hearing my other bits and it's all coming through. And it's like, you just got to have headphones. And if you want, like you say, if you want ones without the microphone, if you want to use the internal mic, just make sure it doesn't have a mic. And then if you want to use the mic on the headphones themselves, like you say, they're $15, $20 to pick up. And you're off to, or you can use any headphones you want at all, like you say, with that Lightning or USB-C to 3.5mm adapter. So there you go. I think that's a success, mate. I think you've answered those 3 questions in around about 5 minutes. So that's almost shorts level. You've done well there. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on here. Like I said, 3 years is too long, so hopefully we get you back on the channel again soon. But what parting? I almost said a different word. What parting words do you have for the Studio Live Today community here? Where can they go to check you out and catch up with everything JP Music?
First of all, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure. JohnPaulMusic.co.uk is my website, and also John Paul Music UK is obviously the YouTube. And the new course is the looping starter kit. So that link that came up right at the beginning, which is for the looping starter kit, it's going to be 25% off. There you go, $72.75. And this is the very basics course that I'm building at the moment. So basics course, shallow end of the pool. If you want to get into looping, you want to start looping, check that out. Once the course is out, that discount is going to go.
Oh, you gotta get into it fast, folks. Look, I've gone on the record, and I'll say this because I'm honest with this. I've gone on the record saying that I don't always love the courses that people put out there, because I think some people don't put out things on the subject that they actually know about. That is not the case here. JP has been looping since he crawled out the womb. He's been looping guitar and doing all sorts of things. So
beatboxing straight out.
There you go, exactly. So I say about courses is look for the person, because sometimes you see these courses and you're like, who's the person behind this? But if you can identify the human, then I say go for it, because you can trust the quality once you know who it's coming from. That is going to do it for this week's podcast. If you were listening on the audio version, I'd love if you gave us a rating on the podcatcher of your choosing. If you want to check out the video version and look at me and JP waving and smiling and doing our thing here, you can jump on over to YouTube. The link is in the show notes of the audio version, and as well as the links to where you can catch up with everything John Paul Music UK. Thanks everyone for listening in. As we say at the end of every show, please be kind to yourself this week, be kind to others, keep creating, and we'll see you next time on the Studio Live Today podcast.